one of the guys came and told me was, Samir, is an amazing platform. Charge people money for it. I said, I don't want to charge money. I want to do it my way. And I kept doing it for a long period of time. And then one lady called Reena came over and gave me this bag. And she said, Samir, this is a magic bag. Pass it around the room and you'll see magic. You'll see things filling into it because you're giving so much. And it's only right for others to give as well in some form of exchange. Doesn't matter. So what I do is I just let the bag do its magic while I do mine. All right? So just if you want to drop in something, you can drop in and pass it around. If you don't want to drop in, it's up to you. There's no compulsion. Second announcement. I'm going on a break, so I'll be away for 3 weeks. So there'll be no awesome walkers for the next 3 weeks.
No.
We can take over. Don't mention the destination, we'll follow you.
What you can do is, I'll give you my India number and we can still have a conversation. All right? Skype or whatever.
Maybe you can go to some people over there and how it's live for us.
Maybe. It is a possibility that I might do awesome walkers when I'm traveling. I have not yet decided. The third announcement. So the third announcement is the announcement I am the most excited to make. So when I started Awesome Walkers, I had no clue where this was going. I had no clue how things can unfold. But it just does. You meet these amazing people who bring in amazing people, and those amazing people bring in more amazing people. And it just keeps having this snowball effect into your life. So one fine day, one lady called Sunita comes into this room, and then she becomes this agent where she goes and tells everybody about Awesome Walkers. And then she starts pulling in people over here. And then one of these ladies came in over here. She was very impressed. And then she started attending my workshops and coaching and everything and started to get to know me. And the good news is, like I told you, signed up with them for taking Awesome Walkers and myself as a brand to the next level. So,
Yay.
now this is an experiment, and I don't know what I'm diving into. And it's a journey. I'm starting again. So 2019 might be filled with promises, or learnings, or a lot of failing, or a lot of falling, like what Mo said today. You don't know. You make choices, you take them, you rise or you fall, you go with the tide, but surf. Why do you do this? Now take your hands here. Take them apart and put them together for Reim El Houni. Thank you. I'm going now.
Get comfortable.
Get as comfortable as you can.
Okay.
You have a long night.
Yeah.
We're going on till 5 a.m. right today?
I'm in.
As many stories as we have.
I'm in. Good.
Lovely. How are you?
I'm great. I'm inspired after hearing Mo, so I feel like I've got a lot to live up to in this in the next hour or so. So, but good. It was great to hear you. So
Maybe we should work together.
maybe, you know. So
I would love to help me, like help them.
yeah, no, there's actually all of your kids. I'm very interested in what you said about kids getting experience things early in life, because I think that's really important to just pave the way. So maybe that's another conversation. So, yeah.
Lovely. Start at the very beginning.
Oh God. Okay.
The easy one. Who is Reem?
I am a Libyan who was born in Germany, who grew up in London, who is a hybrid, a very confused hybrid in terms of all the, you know, influences. But I ultimately grew up with a huge love and passion for film and TV and media, and I think happened to come from a family that has a media background, and that helped me get started at a very young age. So unlike some of the stories we've just heard, I felt very early on that I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
So you're like the surfer who started at 2.
Yeah. So I was very, very fortunate to have, I guess, my first real work experience when I was 16 at MBC, Middle East Broadcasting Centre, when they used to be based in London. And it was one of those eye-opening experiences where it was my first time in a TV studio, and it was my first time like really seeing how the news got produced, and seeing the behind-the-scenes elements of a news desk where the journalist is kind of all prim and proper on top, but then is wearing his shorts underneath, underneath the table, and I was hooked. And from that moment, I knew this is what I was going to do, and I just really, really focused on getting into the industry from that point. So,
what were your parents doing? You said your family was into media.
My dad was an editor-in-chief of the first international Libyan newspaper, so print journalism. And my mom actually was, or is, she graduated top of her class in medicine as a doctor, but didn't actually practice. So she my brother's here, so just looked after us growing up. So yeah.
Is there a love story there? How did they meet? And
not so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arranged marriage you have?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
How did they end up in Germany?
My dad worked at that time, so we were only there for a year. We moved to London when I was a year old, so it's not, I don't actually remember anything in Germany. But yeah, what I do remember very clearly is the media print, like my dad, there was a big print house in London, so weekends at the newspaper and that kind of thing. So it became more acceptable to be in a media industry, versus the traditional, what Mo was talking about earlier, of doctors and lawyers, and it was a little bit more acceptable to be in alternative industries because of the background we had.
At 16, how did you just walk in or get that one?
Yeah, well, at 16, again, I have to admit, there's a little bit of wasta involved, because
Even in London, huh?
Wasta's everywhere. So my dad did help me get that first internship.
But he helped you get, meaning you wanted to get that?
Meaning I grew up loving film and TV. So I was a kid who used to watch a ridiculous amount of
What was your favorite?
Favorite movies? I just loved movies. I mean, when I was a teenager, all movies. And when I was a teenager, I started working at the local video store, and I was able to rent 2 movies a night, and just because I could, I would. So it was it's like I can take 2 movies, so I'm taking them.
You're like Quentin Tarantino, right?
Yeah, I literally would watch everything, and I loved the idea that new movies would come out at the end of the week, and it's up to me to recommend, what people should watch. So it was up to me to watch everything that week, and so I always loved film, and I loved, a big part of it was the escapism. It was I felt like I put that movie on, and I was just drawn away into a completely different world for 2 hours, and didn't matter what was going on in your day-to-day life. A film has the ability to just take you into something different. And I think I loved that so much that I wanted to be part of that. And I think that first experience at 16 was that realization that I can actually work in this industry. I can actually make a living out of something which I'd previously thought was just a passion and was just something I enjoyed in my free time, could be my career. So when you see that as a real possibility, then it was like, what am I going to do to ensure that this becomes my career? And I was very, very focused from the age of 16.
So you didn't go through a journey where you picked something wrong and then got into something right?
For me, no. For me, like 16, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I used to, I mean, just to show you the level of obsessiveness, you know, I used to watch BBC shows in London, and I'd record them all on tape, and I'd sit down later and I would write down the names of everyone in the credits. So, you know, everyone's name. And I knew that the BBC was first name dot last name at bbc.co.uk, and I would just email everybody, you know, and I would just email everybody saying, you know, hi, I really want to get into this industry, and you know, I'd love an opportunity.
That's smart.
And I just did it. I just kept doing it every week on all these different TV shows, and eventually one came through, and it was for, I don't know if anyone's familiar with BBC shows, but it was a show called Watchdog, which is a very popular UK show. And I made it onto Watchdog, and for me that was the most exciting thing. You know, it's like when you're in a BBC studio and it's a show you've been watching on TV, and that's when I got an insight into how things work at the BBC, which is Watchdog in particular. It's the type of show where you have people complain or write in, and you investigate, you know, they investigated the situation. So they actually had like a whole counter for their interns because they used them. It was like they needed their interns to actually function, you know, to answer all the mail. And also they only hired people up to a month, because after a month they have to legally pay them. So just before the month ends, you know, everyone is let go, right? So I understood how this worked. So on my last day at Watchdog, I thought, when am I ever going to have another opportunity where I'm in the building? You know, I have a BBC pass, I'm in the building, and I literally, I just thought, they're not going to notice if I leave. There are like 10 other interns here, you know. So I walked out and I went every single department in that building. And I just, from one show to the next show, hi, I'm an intern on Watchdog. It's my last day today. I'd really, you know, if you've got any opportunities, anything I can do. And like one would say no, and the next one would say no, and the next one would say no. And I was like, I'm going to, you know, I can't leave today because I won't be back in this building. And fortunately, I was in BBC Education, and this one woman, as a producer, who said, oh, well, actually, we're about to start a TV series on media. We need a researcher. Like, I can research. Yeah, no problem. I can do it. You know. Wow. And so she was like, great. Okay. Well, do you have experience? Yep. No problem. I understand. Yeah. And so it was all, you know. And I realized very early that you just have to grab that opportunity. So I took it, and I started university at that point. And when I started university, you know, and I was very conscious that I had to last longer than a month, because, you know, once you pass that month, then you're on the payroll and you're in, you know. So like so I had to be useful, you know. So I made it very clear that I had my university classes, which were like twice a week, and I spent the rest of the time doing everything I could to make myself extremely valuable, you know. So you kind of research. Anything else she needed, I swept studio floors. I did whatever was needed, you know, to ensure that and that month passed, and the series was a 6-month series, and she kept me. So that was like, I'm getting a paycheck from the BBC at the age of 18. So it was not a lot of money. It's not impressive, but I didn't care. It was amazing experience, amazing. And that's one of the things that really taught me the value of work experience versus an education, actually, especially when you're in an industry that is more practical. Because what I was learning at university versus what was actually happening on the ground in the TV station were two completely different things. You know, I would go into uni.
So what is university about?
Sorry?
University, what were you studying for?
I was studying media studies with a specialization in television.
Okay.
So it was totally aligned,
yes.
You know, and but you know, the cameras we were using in the TV station versus what I was studying, the systems versus, it was just, I would come back.
That was misaligned.
Totally. I'd come back saying, but we were meant to be using XYZ, and it would be things I'd never heard of before. So as a result, I really, really value work experience above any degree, and you know.
Do you mean like the university was outdated compared to your practical?
Yeah, I think in our industry, because things change so quickly, from an equipment perspective, from a process perspective, that whatever anyone studies at university, is outdated. So it's I don't want to say pointless, but it is.
I agree, because 4 or 5 years they don't change.
Yeah.
100 years.
So there's not a lot that is relevant. Yeah. So
But the philosophy stays.
yes, the principles. The principles do, but that's what you learn in a book is never going to teach you
True.
what you do on set or how to work, in real life. So I put a lot more value on that. So yeah, the experience was amazing. I ended up being at the BBC for just over a year, and that was the first time that my name was in a TV credit, at the age of 18, which was very exciting for me. Yeah. So
Did you get emails from someone?
Sorry?
Did you get emails from someone?
I didn't. No, I didn't. No.
But how did you get that idea?
I don't know. I think I just I knew I wanted to get in, and I tried so many things. So that was just one of the things I tried. I spoke to people, I visited people's offices. I was very persistent. This is something I wanted to do. So, and I can't remember how I realized the .co.uk, and it just thought, I know, I can do this. So.
How many people would you have mailed approximately?
Oh, hundreds. Yeah, hundreds. Like I was on a mission, it was happening. So
What were you sending in the email? I didn't get that one.
so when you watch a TV show, on the end of the show, it has everybody's names, which is on the credits. So I used to record the show and then watch it later and write down all the names, and then I'll go email them, their first name dot surname at bbc.co.uk, and just see what happens.
Iman.al-Suwaidi at bbc.co.uk.
So yeah,
Makes sense.
I still use it now, actually.
Can I share something on this? Because I think I've done something like that
Yeah.
in university. Because we had like this small business, and I wanted to do marketing campaign and stuff. I don't know how, but I got into the university database and I could access every student emails. And I did this Photoshop design of our shop. It's called Happy Fruit. So basically, we did our experiment in the hostel, and we did a little bit cream. The picture was better than the product actually, but I literally emailed everybody, and there was a number there, and I kept getting calls, delivery,
Yeah.
crazy stuff. I don't know how I did it. Now I'm just remembering. So.
Yeah, but it's true. I've been having this conversation recently, but there are certain times in my life where if I've wanted something, I've managed to just act and do it, and other times where I don't. So I'm just trying to figure out what is it that drives that motion, because it's possible. It's possible to get what you want.
You become a hustler then.
Yeah,
You just start.
total.
You just find out what is the way to get it.
Yeah, and I've done that a few
I have
times.
a question.
Mm.
How did you get Samir to agree?
To what?
You were saying that you are agreeing with them to a project or something. Okay, fine. I don't understand something. Something is missing. I understand.
Yes. So then what happened?
So I finished my degree. I was still working at the video store, which I loved because it was another opportunity to just watch movies, really. And I had a mini blip, which was quite amusing, with my family, because my parents, traditional Arabic family living in a Western country, and I did feel my mother was quite overprotective, and I just got to a point where I was like, I can't do this, and my mom said, fine.
Do what?
Just live with my family in London, and my mom just said, okay, you can't do this, go to Libya. And I said, fine, I will. Out of the stubbornness, I was like, I'm going to Libya. So I had a little
Which year was this?
Which year was this?
Approximately.
Which year was this? God.
80s, 90s?
90s. Yeah, 90s.
Okay.
And so it was quite an amusing time, because out of stubbornness, I was like, I'm going to prove to my mother that I can live in Libya and it's going to be fine. And, and I realized it was the smartest thing she did, because I went from having one mother to having 10 mothers, and it was
How did that happen?
Well, because now you have aunts and you've got all these relatives, And you know, I was staying with my grandparents, and I'm not.
You
I'm
mean
not-
they have the same mentality as your mom?
Yeah, but worse, but like 10 times worse, you know. And it was, I'm not really much of a people person, and I was living in my grandparents' house, and because it's the grandparents, it's like the house of the family, you know. So they all come every Thursday, and they all come all the time, and what would happen is like I'd come, I before I left, I did a CELTA, the Cambridge English Language teaching. So I went as a teacher to teaching English. It was all, again, more wasta. It's like my aunt had an English school, and I was teaching like half my relatives. And then in the classroom next door was another one of my aunts, and in the classroom in that room was another one of my aunts. It's all very amusing. But I remember like, you know, I'd get home from work, and I'd see like all these cars outside, and I was just like, oh my God, there are all these people in the house. And you'd walk in, and the only way, like I'd got to this point where like you knew that, you know, when guests arrive, the first thing they'd receive was like juice, the next thing they'd receive is coffee, and the last thing they'd get is tea. You know, so I'd like quickly scan the room to see who's on juice, who's on coffee, and who's on tea, you know, just to know like, you know, how long are people staying. So it was all like quite a big culture shock for me being in Libya.
But isn't that, because if you're a director or if you're it's all about people. And it's all about reading people, and it's all about interacting people.
It depends on which part of the industry you're in. So for me, I was always inclined more towards producing, floor managing, organization. So all the elements that are managing more than the people side for me. So, and that's something I've worked on a lot, like to work on my people side. So I think I've got better at it. I'm here, you know, so it's something I work on consciously, is to be more interactive and communicative and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions before I move on? So what happened after that, after Libya?
Well, after 5 months, I was like, Mom, I need to come back, because it was just a bit much. I went back to London, and my family at that point had decided to move to Tunisia. So my mom's like, you're moving to Tunisia with us? And I'm like, nope, I've had my North African adventure. No, thank you, that's not happening. And so she said, well, we can't leave you here. You know, you're a girl, unmarried young girl on your own. I'm like, no, not happening. So she you know, agreed that I could stay in London if I got a full-time permanent job in my own field, my own industry. So none of this video shop stuff, you know, it has to be serious stuff, and supporting myself, then I could stay. And I had 6 months to figure this out. I could do it, no problem, 6 months. I was getting pretty depressing because month 1, I'm like emailing the planet again, and I'm contacting, you know, like nothing's coming through. Month 2, and I was like, it's fine, I'm gonna get it, it's fine. Month 4, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be moving to Tunisia. Month 5, I'm like starting to like research the media scene in Tunisia, thinking it's and month you know, it's destined. And month 6, fortunately, got a few job offers, but that's when I realigned and got into corporate production, because the way things work in the TV industry generally is that it's contract based. They don't like to commit and have huge overheads and staff. So they take you on for a series, and they let you go at the end of the series, and they take you on again, and then they let you go. So, which didn't tick my mom's criteria, obviously. So that's when I looked at the corporate side, and fortunately got a position in a corporate production company just in time, just before my family moved.
So what does corporate production mean?
So it's very different. When you're broadcast, you're producing TV shows that get aired. When it's corporate production, it's usually things like TV commercials and events and content that is for an organization versus it being for a broadcaster. Yeah, so I ended up working in the UK for about 5 years in the corporate production side. And then in our industry, it's a very clear ladder. So you know, being a production assistant to a production manager to an assistant producer. It's a very clear ladder that you work up.
And you rose to the top.
Yeah, so I worked my way up till the producer level, and it was pretty hectic. Like I used to work on anywhere like 30 to 40 projects at a time. And I realized very early on that I'm very good at managing a lot of information. So a lot of information simultaneously. So it just got to a point where I can manage 40 projects and know what's happening on each one and know, you know, where this one's shooting and where this one's editing. And so I did that for almost 3 years.
So what is the role of a producer actually?
So people are very confused. They think a director is the
Guy who
the
shoots?
king, but it's not. It's actually the producer. Yeah, so a producer can hire and fire a director because and people don't. But
the one who have numbers. Does that work in Bollywood also?
it works everywhere actually. It should work everywhere. Because what happens is a producer is the person who is responsible for the overall project. So everything from beginning to end.
I remember James Cameron almost got fired for the Titanic, right?
I'm not sure, but
because he was overshooting the budget by.
Yeah. So the producer is responsible. Like, let's imagine a project begins. They understand the scope, what's needed. They then are responsible for budgeting it, like setting the budget. After they've set the budget, they're responsible for the resources. So who is it that they're going to bring in for these various elements? So that's when the director comes in, you know. So the producer's already has the project in hand, has already budgeted it, has already decided on certain parameters. They may bring in the director at that point to decide on various elements in the project.
Such as actors and all that stuff.
Such as the actors, such as the director will always maybe pick the DOP, who's the cameraman. They'll pick certain crew members. But then from that point on, it's important there's good synergy between a producer and a director, because then a director will say, you know, I want to film this with a helicopter and I want to get a crane and I want to... The producer is actually the person who signs the check. So the producer is the one who can say yes to the helicopter, no to the crane. You know, so if you have a good synergy with a producer and director, I happen to have a director I work very well with. She's crazy and we argue all the time. But I know that the suggestions she's making are in the interest of the film. You know, I know that she wants a helicopter because, you know, she wants that aerial shot and that's going to add value to this scene and that scene. So it's up to me to weigh it in my head and think, is it worth the money? You know,
do people still do helicopter shots?
Well, it's drones
now. It's a drone, right?
Most of the time it's a drone now. But that discussion happens between us, and I have to understand enough about what she does to warrant the cost, but also understand that, you know, if she is, you know, taking the mickey and wanting things that are just too elaborate, to say yes, when to say yes and when to say no. And then the director, it depends on the project. In TV commercials, a lot of directors leave after that. So after they've done the shoot, many of them are not involved in all the editing that happens. And it comes back to the producer.
You mean the director's not involved?
In many TV commercials, they'll do what's called a director's cut, which is like their first cut, and then they're off because they're so expensive that your budget cannot handle having the director stay throughout the entire project.
How much would a director cost normally? A good one?
A lot. I mean, they're
they don't take a percentage, or they take a percentage?
It depends on the deal that gets made. It depends, but they are the most expensive resource that you have on any production. So as a result, and
not including the star cast. I mean, are they more expensive than the star?
They can be. They can be because.
Are you talking about ads, or are you talking about
in general? In general,
But
whether
why
it's
are they so expensive? The producer's doing everything.
because it's considered the director's vision, right? So in terms of they would bring a creative style, a creative look, a creative. They're the ones who are going to work with the actors. It's going to be their decisions creatively on what it looks like. Right? I might manage the team. A good producer will get the right director and get the right team and get the right resources. But once we're there, the director is responsible for how it looks on camera.
Right.
You know, so the director is responsible for, I'm going to put the camera here. You know, anything related to what it looks like actually falls on them. But you need the combination to work, because if you have a producer who doesn't understand, then they're not going to give the director the cameras. They're not going to give the director the location. You have some producers who are more interested in making money, so then they start to hinder the production process. No, you don't need that. We'll make it work. It has to work together, yeah. But a director's vision is very important in the storytelling and how it's told. And for me, that's an area I won't compromise. I won't get a director that I don't believe in, because it's going to affect on me. If the film doesn't look good, people who don't understand will be like, what did she produce? Yeah. And the quality of what I produce is really important to me.
Going on a tangent, apart from Hollywood and other mainstream, what other country movies have inspired you?
Country?
Yeah, I mean, what region?
I grew up loving Spanish movies, actually. Because they're very strong, and a few German ones. But in all honesty, since I've moved here, I haven't watched as many international films. Because it's just, I'm a judge for the New York Festival, and I have been for the last 7 years.
How did that happen?
It happened because I've won.
Wasta?
No, actually, no. No, because I've won over 13 New York Festival awards.
And how did that happen? What were they for?
For so many different projects. So I started winning them when I was in the UK, but they were for the companies that I was working for, so they weren't in my name or for my company. When I moved here, which is a whole other long story, but
we have time.
Yeah, but there was the first project that I did independently was for breast cancer awareness. I did a couple of videos which were this amazing woman, maybe some of you know her, Dr. Huria Kazem. She at that time started a foundation called Breast Friends, and she was really having a lot of challenges in getting breast cancer awareness known regionally as something that women need to take seriously, because of the stigma related to actually just breasts, to be honest. Like, she used to bring in material from abroad and it would get censored and confiscated at the airport, so she really wanted to create these videos, which here, and she's a local, so we produced these videos for her, and I really liked them. I think we did a very good job, and I thought, you know what, let me just enter them into the New York Festival. Let's just see what happens. And they won 2 golds and 2 silvers. Wow. So, and that was before I had a registered company. That was just on a whim.
Independent movie, like a... Yeah,
they were films that, there were mini documentaries, I guess, that she produced and then put them on a free DVD that she got distributed at clinics. And we had women from different nationalities speaking. We had Urdu, we had Farsi, we had a local lady speaking an Emirati dialect, because she wanted women from this part of the world to feel like it was speaking to them versus any other video that they may have seen from the Western world. And then she did a great job in distributing them throughout clinics regionally. But because I felt that they had substance, there was impact to it, and we creatively were interesting.
Could you share us how that evolved, that movie, or that story? What is the storyline?
Yeah, no, it was real stories. There were 5 real survivors, and we went through their stories, and they were all at different stages in their lives. So we had one quite young Lebanese girl who was in her 20s, and then we had a couple of older women who, cross-section, 30s, 40s, 50s. And it was just them saying, like, what happened when they first found a lump, their journey, getting it screened, the family reacting, and we reenacted a lot of those scenes. So it was just real, and it was something people could relate to. And on top of it, it was done in their languages. So the Emirati story was told in Emirati.
With the subtitles, so that people would understand.
Correct. And then the Farsi, the Persian lady did it in Farsi and in Urdu and Malayalam even. So
what do you think made that movie win?
I actually think it was a combination of the storytelling, because it wasn't just someone sitting there telling you how important it was, but hearing a story and also seeing the story. We did a lot of reenactment, because I think especially in this part of the world, unfortunately, they don't visualize very well. So you kind of need to show more. So as you know, as the local lady was talking about her childhood, we filmed a young girl. You know, so it was just making it more understandable for people. I know the director I work with, her name is Sophia. We're both very, very creatively, well, we're very quality conscious. So, you know, everything we did on those movies was the best we could do. So in terms of the music was composed, the color was like graded. It was things that nowadays people just take music from a stock library and they just, you know, do a little bit of touching up on the color. But we really, you know, did our best with those films. And yeah, so as I said, I felt that there was substance to them. And at the time I thought, I'll just enter them, see what happens. So I wasn't expecting to have, I mean, I was really happy that the first films that I entered independently, not as part of a company, to hear that they had won 2 golds and two silvers was amazing.
What category was it?
That's a fabulous question. I honestly can't remember.
Doesn't matter.
I honestly, yeah, can't remember.
So from London, after 5-6 years,
Mm.
you moved to Dubai?
Yes.
Why?
I actually came here on holiday.
Okay.
One of my
That's how we all come, right?
Yeah. One of my best friends was Emirati and in London. She grew up with me in London. And she'd moved back here. And she said, oh, I think you need a holiday. You should come out. I came out here on holiday and I thought, it's really sunny. I like this. You know, London is quite grey most of the time. And I just got obsessed again. It was like, this is happening. And in that 1 week, I went to Media City and I was like, wow, there's a whole Media City. And I bought the guidebook. And in that 1 week, I must have emailed every company in that guidebook. Like I literally was like, you know, hi, I'm in Dubai, hi, I'm in Dubai, hi, I'm in Dubai. And in that 1 week, I got 5 interviews. And 3 of them offered me like freelance work, and 1 of them offered me a job. So I was like, great. I went, I signed the contract, and you know, went back to London, gave my notice in London. A month later, I'd moved to Dubai.
Wow, in
So
a week.
it was like done. It's happening.
Emails work.
Totally. But it's also, you know,
That was before WhatsApp.
it was like I'm emailing everyone, you know. I sat there for a whole day. I remember sitting there for a day with the book, going through every single, and then doing my research on each one, you know, and like, okay, yeah, I'm going to email them. Yeah, I'm going to email them, and just went for it.
So you didn't use Vasta?
No.
I think dedication works, right?
Yeah.
Right?
No, but it's
Not email, your dedication.
no, but I felt it, you know. It's like I'm moving here.
You need it.
I decide, it was like a decision, you know. I had decided that I was moving here, so now I need a job, right? If I need a job, this is how I'm going to do it. And I just got the book and went out for it.
Which year was this?
2007, yeah, 2007.
Before the crash.
Yeah.
So when it crashed, how did it feel?
Well, it kind of, it gets more interesting because I moved out here. And the company that I joined, I have a big ethics problem. So as turned out to be not particularly ethical. And I'm not someone who kind of just sits there quietly. I start like arguing with people. So I didn't, I quit within 3 months. But an amazing thing happened, which is that whilst I was at this company, I produced a pilot for Dubai One, which was the first English language TV show that they wanted to start their English division. And it was a show called Out and About.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah?
Oh.
So that was my baby. Like I did everything on that show. And I produced the pilot, and the head of production rang me.
What
and
was it
said,
about?
What was it about?
It's
It
out and
was-
about. You go outside and you explore.
Yeah, it was a show it was an amazing show to work on because it was a show just talking about Dubai, and we just
Channel
went.
33.
Yes. The Channel 33 became Dubai One.
Yes.
Yeah, so we literally just try to discover new things to do in the city. So every week we had like 5-6 different things, and yeah, the head of production rang me and said, "Great news, we love the pilot, we want you to produce this series." And I went, "Oh, that's amazing. However, I've just resigned, but please feel free to work with the company, but just so you know, I personally will not be part of it." And she said, "Oh, I don't care about the company. You know, you're the one who produced this, so I want you. So actually, if you're not working for them anymore, why don't you just come and work for us?" So I was like, "Okay, great, yes." So I literally walked out of that office in the morning and I walked into Dubai One in the afternoon. And it was an amazing opportunity because of the type of show it was. I was new to Dubai myself.
You gave
So-
pilot a new meaning.
Yeah, totally. I was new myself, so it was like, okay, and the presenter, Poonam, who's actually still a very good friend of mine and still works with us actually, she'd just come to Dubai as well. So the two of us were like flung together to produce this show. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the world of television, but we would spend an entire week filming. Filming would be anywhere like 12-hour days normal, so a full week of 12 hours. And in that week, we would film 2 episodes. So we would film around anywhere from 5 to, no, that's wrong. Anywhere from 8 to 10, that's even wrong, sorry, 10 to 12, anywhere from 10 to 12 different locations in a week. And then the following week, we would edit 2 episodes. So we'd have 2 different edit suites, editing 2 episodes whilst we were planning the following week. And it was just the 2 of us. And it was insane. So I was exhausted, I lost a lot of weight. It was just like, that's all we did.
You had fun, you know.
We had
Think
fun.
all Dubai,
When we think back now, it was an amazing time, you know? It really, really was. And it was like, and especially when, you know, the channel, we were the only show and we were the first people and they didn't really care about us, you know? So it was like, you know, yeah, you go off and as long as a tape showed up every week, you know, it didn't really matter what we did or how we did it. So we made it what it was. And
How long did the show go on?
it went on for 7 years.
Wow.
It's the longest running show. So it did very well. And actually,
you were producing it for all these years?
no, I produced it for 5. I produced, directed, and then I became executive producer. So it was truly my baby. And but the first run, it was only on they repeated it. That people started to get to see it, and then we got a lot of sponsors, and then it started to make money for the channel, and that's when it became like an important asset.
It's actually good business, I could see.
Yeah.
The places you visit, you actually promote it.
Totally. But you know, the frustration is that we worked for an organization that didn't understand the potential, you know. So both of us, both Poonam and I, would come in every week and go, you know what we should be doing with this show? We should be doing X, Y, Z, and we should. And you're like, oh, that's not going to get approved. Oh, the budget. Oh, the whatever. So you kind of felt very. So you know, you get to a point where you're just like, okay, let's just focus on our part of the process.
I was watching TV, I said, this program is getting a lot of money just behind that. That's
Yeah,
what in my mind.
yeah. It did start to attract a lot of sponsors. We started by year 2 getting, you know, it made sense financially. But yeah, it was a lot of hard work.
And it takes time sometimes for it to establish, right?
Yeah, totally. Anything you do in the media takes time. Just to build a following, gain awareness, build the engagement, and for a brand to be ready to actually pay, they need to start seeing an ROI on that, to put numbers down. It's a bit easier on a TV channel because people don't understand it so much, so they just assume that if you say, oh, we've got to reach a 50 million viewers, well, no, that only means that 50 million TV sets receive the channel. It doesn't mean that 50 million people have watched it, you know, so it's not everyone who understands that logic. And unfortunately, being an Arab, I'm saying this, it's mostly the Arabs that don't understand it. So most of the time, you know, it's like, oh, but it's 50 million. It's like, yeah, well, you know, do you know how many of them actually turned it on?
And will you know? Can you know?
In TV, well, it depends on the part of the world you're in. In the US, yes. In the Western world, there's Nielsen. There's a lot of, you know, trackers.
Yeah.
Here, no.
In social media, you can
Why is it not
Yes,
here?
but they still don't understand that here. So I'll get to that bit later.
You can't track
So
viewership now.
on TV,
Yeah.
locally, no,
Oh.
Yeah.
Why?
What do you mean?
because they haven't installed any form of tracking system.
Where will they install it? They won't
They
install.
won't install it.
No, if they have to install, where would it be? Who would install it?
It would have to be the TV stations being contracting an organization like a Nielsen to actually have that tracked.
So that tracker would be a satellite in the sky, or would it be something on the ground?
It's normally a receiver through the TV, so I don't understand the technology, so I won't go through that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
I want to ask, sorry, I want to ask you one thing. You mentioned about being the ethical dilemma kind of a thing.
Hmm.
During these years, did you face anything like that?
There's so many ethical dilemmas in our
And
industry.
how do you sort of
I think
manage it?
I think at the end of the day, I've been in some rooms and had some discussions which are highly unethical, but
Without
I've-
taking names, can you give examples?
yeah, sure. Like I mean, one clear one for me is that I've been, when you're in TV, a lot of people pitch ideas to you, and I've been in rooms where an idea gets pitched, and the person leaves the room, and the people in the room are saying, well, what's so special about that idea? We can do it ourselves. We don't need that person. We don't, and it's like suddenly that idea is gone from being that person's to, and you kind of sit there and you're like, well, no, they've worked on it. They've come, they've whatever that, and when you've seen some of these things happen, there are two things you can do. You either stand up for it, and you're like, no. But then you start to get a reputation for yourself as being the difficult person, or you let it go. And if you let it go, then it starts to become normal, and that's something that I just got to a point where I didn't want it to be normal anymore.
Yeah.
And and I'm not going to go into more details, but it's a primary reason why I left employment, actually, was because there were a few too many unethical things going on.
And then running your own business, are you able to?
Yeah, totally. I think that's one of the things. When it's your own business, it's up to you, what the rules that you set, and then it's up to you. Like, unethical things happen, but then it's up to you whether you allow it or you don't, or whether. So I do my best to ensure that we don't participate in anything that we would consider unethical. Sometimes if it happens, then it's how do you stop it from happening again?
Have you let go of a customer or something?
I have. Yeah, I have. And we actually had this I've got a couple of people here, and we had this conversation just recently, because we had one client who we're unsure if it's unethical or not at this point, but we have had a conversation where if it is, then it's something we're happy to let go of. So, yeah. Because it comes back to bite you in the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
What is the most challenging thing in the industry actually for you right now?
For me personally,
Yeah, I mean, as a business owner, as a producer.
the most challenging thing for me is the fact that I really value experience, and I really value people who've worked their way up in the industry. And I guess because I've worked my way up in the industry, so I know what it's like to have swept the studio floor and to be a runner and be a PA, and I know what it's like to do all of that. And I get very frustrated when people have bought a camera and they've downloaded some software and they've spent the weekend teaching themselves how to edit, and then they've gone out there and now they've got big clients, and now they're a production company, and now they're, and I'm like sitting there going, do you have a trade license? How long have you been in this industry? That's what you're doing. That to me, but it's because the industry has become so much more accessible for anyone to enter.
Yeah.
The barrier for entry is lower. Fine, I can accept that. We want to encourage creativity, but not when it actually jeopardizes the market and the industry for people who've been working at it for so long and trying to get standards to where they are. It starts to dilute the standards, and then they start offering like the most ridiculous rates. It's like you've got you know, I'm sitting there trying to get a video made for, even I've had to drop my rates, you know, 10K, 8K, 5K, and someone's doing it for 500. You know, when you're just like, well, okay, we're in the wrong industry now. You know, there's something that needs to change to actually acknowledge or appreciate what it takes to produce a video. I've had some clients who've gone that way and have come back. So I'm hoping that it's a learning curve that people will go through, that they need to go and experience the cheap and cheerful solutions and then get burnt a couple of times and then realize there is a value to the experience. But then also part of it is about pivoting and changing, you know, because it is a reality that our industry has changed. And how do you then keep being relevant and keep moving with the times and keep learning, and that's something I am, you know, I do my best to stay on top of whatever the trends are and keep changing, because if you don't change, you die.
How do you handle technology, the innovations in technology? I mean, like comparing to a helicopter shot
To a drone.
to a drone, I mean, there's tremendous financial savings.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you keep, I mean, do you attend conferences?
I love learning, so I truly love learning. I will go to conference. I try and go to at least 1 or 2 a year, like internationally. For 7 years running, I went to the largest broadcast conference in Vegas, because I just love to hear and see like the latest technologies, the latest trends. Conferences in the UK. I went to Cannes last year, went to Amsterdam last year for VidCon, because I really feel that we're in an industry that does evolve constantly. So if you are not keeping up to date and evolving with it, there's no way, number one, you'll be in business and you're going to be irrelevant very quickly, you know. So yes, have to keep learning. But then it's not just the learning, it's the adapting and doing. You know, so I spent a few years going and learning and hearing, and then I come back and I'm so frustrated, because like you realize that the market here is usually 3 to 4 years behind what is happening anywhere else. And then I'm ready with this information now, you know, like I'm ready and I want to do this, and it's like no one around me is ready to do this. So I've ended up in a number of situations where I've run ahead because I'm excited and ready, but the market isn't. And then that's a balance that I'm still trying to figure out, of like how to hold back, and then but you still want to be at the forefront. But at times you're just running too early, and you know, waiting for everyone else to catch up is frustrating.
And what about your team? How do you percolate the learning that you have with your team so that, you know?
I'm a big believer in teaching, so I take on a lot of interns and then I take them on early, and I'm a big believer, and I think it's because it happened with me, to be honest, because I was taken on so early, and had a great producer who you know, at the BBC for that first year or so, that I know that if you get people at that age and you kind of instill it young, they're also more loyal. You know, they're more loyal, and you're building like I'm till now I'm so indebted to that first producer, you know. So and I do think it's about teaching. I've had a couple who are freelancers who've like gone off and done other work, and to be honest, if it gets to that point, the reward is greater than the risk, you know. So I don't want to sit there thinking, what if this person leaves, what if that person leaves, you know. If they leave, I've done something wrong. You know, it's kind of what you I think you said it earlier. Like for me, it's like I'm trying to build an environment that everyone wants to stay part of. And a big part of that is, it was you talking about earlier, the caring element, the vulnerability element, you know, we do something in the office every day. Amala's behind the camera, so but we do something in the office every day, which is our daily huddle. We do our daily, what else do we do after the daily updates? We do like a daily, like similar to what you do with your cards. We have our own card box, and we actually cuddle too. We have our daily cuddle because, you know, and it's stuff that, you know, for me, that's equally as important as the learning and, you know, the work, because I want people to feel like they're in a family environment and that we're growing together. So if I learn something new, I'm going to teach it to them as well.
I think BBC is a great place to learn.
Sorry?
BBC a great place to learn?
BBC, was a great place for me to learn because of the producer I was with.
Okay.
You know, because I happened to be with a person who, number one, needed my help and was happy to allow me to do that. But as TV stations usually are not, because TV stations usually are behind. Like, I'll give you an example, like Dubai TV now have had the same systems there for like 30 years, you know, so they're not usually at the forefront of what is happening in the technology space.
Why did you?
TV is very boring nowadays.
Is it
Why
because
did you-
of the person who's behind? You know, like
It depends. I mean, I can't speak for why, but it depends. Usually it's such a big investment with a TV station to replace all the equipment consistently. So what's really amusing to me is like people hear things and they hear HD and 4K and we should be filming on 4K. None of the TV stations here are actually equipped to air 4K, you know, so why like this whole drama of like, you know, is it 4K or what does it matter? Who's actually going to be able to watch it on 4K right now? You know, so there's such a misunderstanding of, you know, the feasibility, and because it's expensive. It's expensive to replace the whole system.
It's not like the 3D TV or what?
No, it's like a higher quality of resolution. So there's HD, you've probably heard of HD. The next is like 2K and 4K, and now there's 8K, and you know, it's just like a higher pixel, higher resolution
But when you
of
talk
image.
about filming on 4K or because they are not able to see, but what about something like YouTube and various other things where the same thing what you produced can be aired?
So yeah, so going back to what you actually asked about learning, I got very obsessed with online content very early. So because I felt it was the way forward, and I also I strongly believe that, you know, everyone is a content creator, you know, so everyone has the ability to do it. And after hearing in all these conferences like how, you know, YouTube was growing in other parts of the world, and I just thought this has to happen here, you know, this is like insane. So so 4 years ago I started Dubai On Demand, which is a different brand to Ti22. And Dubai On Demand literally was born because I came back from a conference. I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this. And I'm a big believer in signs. So for me, anything that happens, I follow, right? Or I try to follow. And I came back from this conference and I heard the news that Dubai One had made everybody redundant, right? And they, you know, that they decided to close their English language division. So I suddenly thought, I've been wanting to do this. They decided to focus on acquisitions, which is purchasing content. It's cheaper for them to do and probably makes them more money. But I just thought, okay, I've been wanting to do this for some time, but I can't do it on my own. You know, I need people. And now Dubai One has just made everyone redundant. Literally the next day, I emailed them all. You know, so literally, I emailed and I was like, "Hi, I'm so sorry to hear your news. However, this is what I want to do. So if you're interested, let me know." 11 of them were like, "Yep, we're in. We're interested." I was like,
Wow.
"Amazing. Come meet me." So I hadn't even really fully fleshed out.
The people who made redundant, or what?
Yeah, I emailed all the people who were made redundant,
Okay.
and I just said, I'm really sorry. This is what I want to do. I don't have money. I can't pay you, but I have a vision, and this is what I imagine is going to happen. And at that point, I didn't really have a full plan. But when I suddenly had 11 people saying, yes, we're interested, I was like, I better create this plan, you know? So I was like...
And you are a producer.
Yeah, so I was like, okay. So, and I also believe in like setting dates, you know? It's like if you set it, you know? So I'm like, okay, we've got a meeting. It's going to be on the, I think it was, when was it? 30th of August or something.
Which year was
30th.
it?
It was 4 years ago, so 2014. Yeah, 14. So August, I was like, 30th of August, we're meeting 2 o'clock. This is the location. They all said yes. Like, I have a week to get this presentation together. Got the presentation sorted. They came to this meeting, and
So the presentation is a vision presentation.
yeah, it was a vision. It was like, this is what I want to do. It didn't have a name yet. It was just an online channel, online platform. I was like, this is the plan. Each of you will have your content. This is how it will work out. This is how we're going to attract brands. It was just a whole vision and how we're going to market it. And there's a whole other side story, but I'd had a not so good experience that year.
And that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it. It's fine. But I had it's fine. It's fine. But it taught me a very important lesson about contracts, right? It taught me a very important lesson about no matter who you're going to work with, you get contracts in place. So I know all these people, like I love these people. It was Poonam who I had started Dubai One with, and it was, Lane, and I'd given him his first job, and it was, they're people who I really know very well. And I basically said, I know you're all excited about this idea, but here's a contract, and I love you all, but we're not going to start until all of you sign this contract. And actually it was fine. Like most of them just signed it. Some of them took it away. A couple of them had questions and made some changes, which was fine. But that's one of probably the proudest business moments I have, is the fact that I was able to sit with a group of friends and make them understand the importance of us aligning contractually before moving into
Which actually shifts the whole relationship from friends to professionals, right?
I've always had that challenge because I've always, when I was at Dubai One, I was a lot of people's first employer, or the first person who gave them a chance in TV. So we had that friendship relation and the boss relation. So I've always had to. It's not always easy, but yeah, I'm used to that. So Dubai and Daman was the same. It depends. Like it can get. When I left Dubai One, I found it very challenging because it's like I'm suddenly alone in a world where I'm, starting a new chapter, and all of my friends are still working somewhere else, and but you have to be firm because some of them try and take the mickey. Like some of them are like, I remember very clearly 3 of them being on holiday and calling me going, oh, we're having so much fun on holiday, is it okay that we were going to extend? I was like, no, it's not okay. You have to come back. We've got a TV show tomorrow. She's like, oh, but come on, how much fun it is. We haven't seen each other for years. And, and I was like, I don't care. There's the friend part. There's the friend part, and then there's the work part. And I think the reason I've succeeded in managing that is because I've still been firm with my friends. I've fired friends before. I fired my best friend before, because she was just not very good at her job, so it didn't help from the friend level for a while. But, it's like, for me, it's really, and even now I've got friends working with me. Like Amala knows, Poonam works with me and lives with me, so there's a whole like boundary level there. And every now and then there, I know she's pushing it and I'm like, no, it's like, I love you. And I normally start the conversation that way. I normally start with, I love you, I love you, and this is not a friend conversation, this is a work conversation. But in the work front, that sucks. You can't do that, And then she'll be like, I know, I'm sorry, da, 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 da. It's like, okay, so can we sort that? Yes, great. So it's about compartmentalizing the two. So it's not always easy because I have lost friends that way because not everyone understands it. But it's what's helped me, and I think what's given me, I've had more respect because of that.
I'm intrigued about one thing. You have, whatever you wanted, you have gone chasing it, and you have got it. And you have had this doggedness of finding out means and ways of getting it. Why did you not want to ever go to Hollywood?
Oh no, that's happening. It's in the plan. It's in the plan.
Okay.
It's in the plan, but later.
Okay.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like, and actually the funny thing is, when I quit Dubai One, everyone thought I was crazy, but because it was one of those things where.
Oh, so you quit?
Yeah.
Everybody else was made redundant?
A few years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you came out?
Yes. So I quit in 2010.
Because?
A number of reasons. One was what we touched on
The
earlier,
ethical,
the
okay.
ethical side. Second was actually because I was working like a crazy person. So in TV, like I was working, like shoots would finish at midnight and my next shoot would start at 4 a.m. and I was just on this whole clockwork. I had no other life other than work. And a few things happened which made me realize I was meant to go on holiday. My family were in Tunisia and I was meant to go visit them, and it was November, and I was so busy, and I was told that I was now producing the air show, and I forgot that I was traveling. And my dad rang me, actually. My dad rang and said, "Oh, what time are we picking you up from the airport?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm not coming. I forgot to tell you I'm not coming. I'm producing this show for the air show." And I said, "But I'm going to come next month. I'm going to come next month." Okay, next month I'll rebook. A month later, I did the same thing. And I don't know how. I'm a very organized person. So the fact that I did it twice, you know, that a month later, my dad, it was the same conversation. My dad calls me again saying, "What time are we picking you up from the airport?" I was like, "Oh my God, I've forgotten again. But Dad, I'm doing diff, and I'm about to do, they've just told me I'm doing," at that time it wasn't Burj Khalifa, it was still Burj Dubai.
Just told me?
You know, yeah, but
I think your dad just told you.
no, so it was like, so there was that realization that, and the funny part, no, it's not that funny, but after that, I finished a week of diff. I remember the
What is
last
diff?
Dubai Film Festival.
Okay.
And I remember the last day of the festival, I finished at midnight, and I had a presentation at 9 a.m. the following morning to the CEO of the channel, because they just decided that we were going to do a live televised, 2 live televised shows for, at that time, Burj Dubai. And I hadn't worked on it yet. So I literally, I got home at midnight and then started writing you know, the content and the running order and everything for the Burj Dubai show. And I slept at 7 a.m. I woke up at 8 a.m. and I went to work and I did this presentation, and they're like, "Great, you're doing 2 live shows in 10 days. It was a massive, massive project. This was the opening of Burj Dubai, which then became Burj Khalifa. And meanwhile, my colleagues had gone on holiday. So the other people in my, you know, and so I'd worked through the nights, I'd worked through weekends, and when my colleague came back, she was like, "Oh, has it been busy?" I'm like, "Yes, it's been busy. I've been working through the night." And I tried to get my time in lieu, and they wouldn't give it to me. And I had to prove that I was working. I'm like, the show was live on air, it has my name on it, you know. So when you have those kind of conversations, you sort of think like, why am I working so much? Through the night, through holidays, forgetting holidays, you know, and meanwhile, you know, it's not actually contributing anything to my life. Creating great content for other people. And it was just like a switch that went off in my head one day. I remember it very clearly. I was at home and I just thought, just quit, you know, just quit. I went in the next morning, I handed in my resignation. And everyone thought I was crazy. Like, the CEO was like, "How can we keep you? What do we need to do?" I'm like, it's just a decision. I'm quitting.
You
know?
didn't have anything planned ahead?
No plan.
Nothing?
Nothing. And everyone was like, "But how?" And I was in a very senior role. I was being paid very well, you know, and it's like, no. What are you going to do? I don't know, but no. It was just a decision.
Wow.
And with most decisions in my life, I don't tell my family. So, because I know that like my mom will talk me out of it. So it's, you know, it's like figure it, like I do it. Like even when I moved here, by that time I called her and I said, "I'm moving to Dubai." "What do you mean you're moving to Dubai? How are you going to do it?" "It's fine, it's sorted, I've got the job, you know, I've got a job, I'm being paid, it's done." You know, because I've realized as long as I give the solution, you know, there's no point worrying them unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Figure it out, get the solution, then just tell them it's happening.
Yeah.
You know, so it was the same thing. It's like I quit and my mom was like, "What are you going to do?" "It's done. I've resigned. I've handed it in. It's done now. What are you going to do?
This
You
is
know?
how we survive as Arabs.
Yeah, what are you going to do? So
Did you regret that decision of resigning?
I got very obsessed a few days later. So basically, just coming to the Hollywood thing. So I found out Mission Impossible were going to be filming in town. So I was like, that's it. A Hollywood movie is coming to town. I am on this movie. I didn't know how, but I knew I was on it, right? So I knew it. Oh wait,
Emails.
it's coming. So
Tom Cruise?
I basically, I remember it. My last day
Tom
at work was
Cruise.
a Thursday. Friday, I fixed my CV and I rang everyone I knew. I rang this time. I rang everyone I knew in the film industry. Hi, do you know anyone working on Mission Impossible? Do you know anyone working on Mission Impossible? Do you know anyone? Eventually, and the funniest thing is, it was my director friend. She's like, actually, I know the production manager. She's coming to dinner tomorrow. I'm coming to dinner. Like, I don't care, but I'm at the dinner, right? So I remember going to this dinner, and you know when you're at a dinner and you're like, I don't actually like talking about people's dogs and their plants, and you know, I just don't. I'm like, so I spent the whole dinner like trying to, like, waiting for that moment to, like, how do I get in with
That's
this?
what people talk about?
But you know, it's just, anyway. And they're like talking about all this stuff, and I'm like, eventually my friend goes, oh, you know, Reem has just left Dubai One. I was like, yes, so I'm available. And she's like, oh, interesting. So what do you do? Anything. I'm available to do anything. She's like, are you looking for anyone? And they're like, well, actually, I think we've hired most of the people. I was like, no, I will do anything. And she said, well, there might be a position in transport. I will do transport. You know, so she's like, transport. So she said, well, I think they're doing interviews in the next few days. Great, I'm there. Who do I need to talk to? Just email this person. I'm emailing them, no problem. Next day I email.
I'm an expert in emailing.
I had an interview the next day. I got the job as a transport coordinator on Mission Impossible. So again, this is when I ring my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I'm working on Mission Impossible. Great, what are you doing? Transport. Like, you mean people's cars? I'm like, yes, Mom, people's cars. She's like, so are you trying to tell me you've gone from being an executive producer to managing people's cars? I'm like, yes, Mom, but it's Mission Impossible, and it's a feature film, and it has Tom Cruise, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. You know? So it was, so they were only in town for 3 months. So yeah, I only worked on it for 3 months, but it was an amazing experience. Amazing because, you know, it was, in my mind, like, feature films were like this big thing. You know, it's like, wow, Hollywood, wow, you know, and then you realize that they're just as disorganized as everyone else, you know, and then you realize that actually, you know, everything it's a matter of scale. I'm doing it with 40 people. They're doing it with 400 people, you know, so it's the exact same challenges, the exact same processes, it's just scale. So I actually came out of that experience feeling even more confident that I am going to be in Hollywood and I am going to win my Oscar, and it's just a matter of time.
Wow.
So yeah.
And you don't need to live in the US to do that, right, anymore? You can be here.
I think meet is a stretch. I wouldn't say I met him. We were in the same vicinity a number of times, you know. So, and that I did do. That I did. I managed transports. No, so
Which car you will take?
yeah. So managing transport meant that on the film, in total, there were 80 cars and 60 vans, 60 trucks. So on a daily basis, I was responsible for the movements of those 80 cars and 60 trucks. You know where you schedule them all, where they need to go, all this kind of stuff. So I knew where he was at all times.
So what was your objective when you accepted that role?
My objective was purely to learn, because up until that point, I have a lot of TV experience, I have a lot of corporate experience. I'd never been on a feature film before, let alone a Hollywood feature film. So for me, it was a case of, I don't care what it is I'm going to do. I could have swept floors, you know, but the idea is that I am in that environment and I'm learning and I'm seeing firsthand, you know, what it's like and what the process is. So that was my objective. It was hard. No, I'm not gonna lie. Like to go from one day being an executive producer and having teams of people working for you, and you know, to being the person
Hard here,
managing-
right? Hard
yeah,
here.
yeah. Mentally, it was hard. You know, just you know, and a lot of, especially from a lot of crew knew me. A lot of people knew me in this industry, and now I was the person taking the car registration details. You know, it's. But in the back of my mind is like, it's fine. It's for a bigger cause. You know, it's not like this.
But
is
they would have
all-
seen you with more respect, actually, right?
I hope so. I mean,
Because if you can go to any level, it means
yeah,
you're
I
a
hope
learner.
So. I hope so. For me, it's. I've always believed in relationships first, anyway. So I have, whether you know, whether they're the driver or whether they're the CEO, they're gonna, however they encounter me in that journey, it's gonna be the same. So, but for me, I think it was a little hard, you know, to be back to the role of like, wow, I now need to be the one sitting here and filling out the registration details when you're used to having so many people to be like, can you do this? Can you do
But
this? Can you
did
do this?
find some friends that you lost when that transition happens? A lot of
I've lost so
people-
many friends.
No, but especially since you have these fair weather friends and you know people who are okay, she's in a position of clout and now she isn't, so you know.
Oh my
that
God.
is-
You know what the funniest thing? I remember one phone call specifically because when you're an executive producer at a TV station, everybody loves you. You know, everybody, and they all inviting you everywhere and sending you stuff, and you know. And I remember a phone call from a PR person who said, "Oh, hi, how are you? Yeah, fine, great. Oh, we want to invite you to this opening, da da da." And she gave me all the details, and I was like, "Oh, wow, that sounds great. That sounds really interesting. Thank you so much for the invitation." And then, being the stupid fool that I am, I just went, "I feel like I should tell you that I'm not actually at Dubai One anymore, you know? So, I mean, I appreciate the invite, but if you're calling me because, you know, I'm not there." And she went, "Oh, where are you now?" I went, "Well, I'm actually thinking of starting my own company, da da da." And she went, "Oh, do you think Poonam would want to go?" So, well, you can call her and ask, you know. And then she's like, "Oh, okay, great, thanks," and got off the phone. So just like that, my invite got revoked, you know. And you just gradually you start to realize, you know, it's like, okay, well that was
But
hurtful.
have you had friends who have been consistent, or people who have respected you through the ups and downs? Fair weather, of course, we all.
I've had people in the industry who have been consistent because I think I've been quite steady in terms of I've been around in the industry for a long time. A lot of people know me in the industry, so industry connections have been consistent. Friends, not so much, because I think I've also gone through my own journey, and people change, you change. And what I noticed, especially leaving the TV station and going into my own company, the mindset is completely different. You know, so an employee mindset of just the paycheck mindset, and then you needing to like literally figure out how to start a business and run a business, the type of people are completely different. So I would be sitting there stressing about where I'm going to get a client. They don't understand what I'm going through or how I'm going to pay. They just don't get it. It didn't make any sense. So I found that when I left the TV station, I lost a lot of friends, just because, you know, we're in different parts of our lives. But it did force me to, and I know you're familiar with places like BNI, for example, and I know like Diraj and Raki are here as well. But fortunately, because something else I realized is I have complete faith in my ability as a producer. I know I'm a very, very good producer. But that does not make me a very good business person. You know, they are two completely different skills, you know.
What
And so-
distinguishes producers from being good? How do you distinguish one as a very good producer?
I think, you know, the quality of what I produce, I think I have, because I've worked my way up, I have a very solid understanding of all of the components it takes to produce something, versus you get a lot of people who call themselves producers, but maybe have never directed and never been a camera person and they've never done all these things. I have, you know. So when a cameraman starts telling me, you know, about the equipment and the lenses and how tired they are, like I actually get it. I've done that, you know. So And I think in order to be a good producer, you need to have an understanding of everything if you're going to make, especially financial decisions. So I'm very conscious about certain things, like I will never cut food, for example, you know, because I know that food is like one of the most important things to a crew member. You know, it's like if you go cheap on food, you've lost your crew. You know, whereas a producer who maybe has never done that, you know, they'll be like, oh, we can just give them sandwiches. Like they'll bite your head off, you give them sandwiches. You know, they're expecting a meal. You know, so it's small things that I think you only get from experience and actually doing everything.
I have a question. I noticed in this industry they cut sleeping time. Is that natural?
Unfortunately, it's become the norm to have a 12-hour day is normal. So, and what will happen is that when budgets get tighter, they would rather pay overtime than pay for a second day. So what that means...
I don't understand why. Maybe that's...
Well, you don't understand...
Why? Like, for example, for an actor to be like working all these long hours and to be like in the same performance, you understand?
It's all of these things are budgetary decisions. So, you know, so a client, let's just for argument's sake say that a client has 100,000 dirham, right? And 100,000 dirham will get them one shoot day, but the project actually needs 2 shoot days, but they don't have the money to pay for day number 2, right? They don't have the money to pay for number 2, but the idea needs 2, right? So they still want to do the idea. So what do they decide to do? It's cheaper for them to pay for hour 13, 14, 15, 16 of your time than for them to pay for day number 2. So unfortunately, the hours just start to get longer because they're trying to make an idea work within a smaller budget.
But the performance of that actor is not affected from your experience?
Of course it is. Of course it is. Like ideally, no one should be working more than 12 hours. Like actually, even more than 10 hours, you're already exhausted. You know, so but it's in our industry, it is normal, sadly. Yeah.
But the lead actor generally has his break time. So.
No, they have their
You have to have
What
break
about
times.
Tom Cruise doing?
Actually,
They have the van, so
even
they
in
can sleep in the van.
even in feature films, the hours are quite long. But in other countries like the US, you know, they've got what's the word I'm looking for? Unions. You know, unions and very strict about guidelines and timings, which what we are working on it here. So I'm actually on the steering committee of the UAE Production Forum, and that's us banding together, the industry banding together to try and create that. And we're working with the DED and with Dubai Chamber to try and create like a set of standards and create, you know, but it's hard. It's hard to get that going because right now there's nothing official here. And because there isn't anything official, there's always like half the market who will do whatever they want to do to you know, make the most out of the situation. But hopefully we'll get somewhere with that in the next couple of years.
Also this applies?
In India,
Yeah.
I'm not aware of the union levels in India. I don't think they do, because from what I've heard, like hours are equally as long there. So I believe. However,
Friend, by the way.
sorry?
She is a good friend.
Okay. However, I did come across a fabric when I was on a trip in the US, and I just felt the fabric and it was really, really soft. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing, you know. And I walked in and I wanted to find out more, and it was bamboo fabric. And then I started to understand more about the qualities of bamboo and the fact that it's antibacterial and it's thermoregulating and it's so soft and it's just amazing. Like, it's amazing fabric. And I'm someone who generally is quite hot all the time. So it's like, if I, you know, the idea that something cool, and we live in a hot country. So I came back to Dubai and I looked, this was 2011, I looked everywhere for it and I couldn't find anywhere that had bamboo fabric. So the first thing I thought of doing was franchising, and I kind of looked at the brand in the US, and it was really expensive to do that. And then I thought, why am I franchising something nobody knows about? You know, I could create it myself, you know, knowing nothing about fashion or fabric or clothes or anything, right? Well, yeah. Well, one of my closest friends, you know, I said, look, I have this idea. I really like the fabric. I know nothing about the industry, but I feel this potential. So do you want to do this? And she said, yeah, let's do it. I was like, great. And it was everything in that business was quite amusing. And it hasn't succeeded. I still have faith that the day will come where it will make sense. But we, everything in that business was like, do you know how to do that? I don't know. Do you know how to do that? I don't know. Let's Google it. Okay, let's Google it. So literally, the number of mistakes that we made were quite amusing. But yeah, the ultimately, it didn't end on the best note. And predominantly because we didn't have an agreement in place. And that's why, and that was the lesson that I learned, which I then took forward when I started Dubai On Demand.
Okay. Ask your brother. Tell us about your sister.
Oh God.
Where to begin?
Oh dear.
Begin from wherever she's not said anything about her.
Without
I mean-
getting yourself in trouble, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So,
No, I mean, there's not a lot to say. I mean, I've of course been around through her journey, and you know, she is very dedicated, hardworking, and has exemplified that for me. So she's always been, you know, someone that I look to. That kind of has set the standard for work ethic. And I think that's a very, very good thing. And it's definitely helped me in my kind of own business entrepreneurial career to kind of see what someone should aspire to. Yeah,
oh,
that's
thanks,
kind of-
Nader.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of important to share. You know, she's my older sister. So other than being, you know, a sister and a family member, she has also been an inspiration.
How?
Yeah, I mean, from the dedication side, from her from an ethics as well. You know, the way she's also taken risks. You know, she's talked about a few of her risks. I think she's been very brave in those. And yeah, I mean, it's quite a hard position you put me on right now.
Yeah.
But just generally speaking, yeah, I think, you know, life's got ups and downs, right? And its persistence is very important.
Yeah.
And kind of also having dedication or faith, you know, in what you want, yeah, and a vision in what you want to achieve is paramount.
Okay.
I have a question related to that. It's not difficult. So when you look at a person, in a lot of families they say, you know, she got this from this uncle or this aunt or this grandmother. You know, like her ability, her dedication, her ability to take risks, and the focus. Where do you think she got it?
From her younger brother.
I'm asking you, that person may not be able to find, but there is what you see.
What is it?
Obviously, who inspired her, that's a different matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm inclined to believe that, you know, her social conditioning at the time, including her family, her parents, and her friends at the time, were probably a motivating factor as to, I mean,
I actually think our mum, because for different reasons, our mum is quite amusing because she's very dedicated. So whatever it is that comes up, like what I remember growing up is two clear things. I remember like most of my friends like were all focused on getting married. You know, like who they're gonna get married to, who they're gonna have kids with. My mom, from when I was a kid, used to say the most important thing in life is being financially independent.
Wow.
That's what I actually remember my mom saying
Common with no.
as a kid. You know, I don't remember her saying. My mom never said anything about getting married, about kids, about anything like that. You know, which maybe is why I'm not married now, but that's another story. But it's like the
Are we getting to that story?
you know, well, no, but she was very
Yeah.
focused on you need
Yeah.
to be financially independent, you need to have a career, you need to, and that was from when I was a kid, you know.
You're talking about financial independence.
Was that because she had a qualification but never had a...
I believe that it was because she was so talented and
She felt like
educated
caged?
And no, not caged, but I think there was definitely a lot of untapped potential with her.
Yeah.
That I think with me, it was a case of like, you know, you need to focus on this.
Go and live your life.
But also from a different perspective is that I remember her learning everything. Like I remember, you know, if there was a plumbing problem, you know, she'd be like, let's call the plumber. Before the plumber even made it, she would have like, you know, read up about plumbing, gone through all the booklet, like she'd be under the sink, she would have fixed and the plumber would come and she would argue with the plumber, you know, she'd be like, no, it's this thing that's loose and I've just done it, you know.
Are you
And
basically talking about my mom?
but it's you know, but it's one of those things that actually you realize that whatever it is, like I remember in one weekend she taught herself how to upholster a whole sofa, you know, and it was upholstered by the end of the weekend, you know. So it's like small things like that actually, when I think about it, it's when you see examples of people just teaching themselves how to do something, I think you start to realize I can do this, I can teach myself how to do this, I'm going to do this. So I think that's where I would put it down to. There was no Google, yeah. She read books, so.
You know, you talk about giving, giving an opportunity for a lot of interns and other things. But have you had an opportunity of giving back something to somebody who was not directly working with you? You know, like in terms of a lot of things what you got for yourself, were you able to do that for somebody outside your company?
I think most of them have been within, so I find it easier to take on interns or take on students because I feel like that's an area of expertise I have that I can share. I have, however, when it's come to causes, because something else I feel like I can do is shed light on causes. You know, so for example, I mentioned the breast cancer awareness films. I also did one of the first films I did here was for a women's shelter. Because that's, again, it's a tool that I have. I can produce video content, so I can utilize that to shed light on different situations. And I also, you know, what's happened more recently, which is inadvertent, is I've realized that I'm more confident than a lot of people, and which I didn't realize. And there are a lot of people like, oh, you're so brave to have done this. I'm like, well, no, you could do it too, you know. So it's like, an example actually are Bumaka, from Soul Hope. Like they came to one of our events a couple of months ago, and 1 month ago even.
Your stuff.
No. They came to an event.
Potential.
They came to an event.
That's where we met.
Anything.
That's where we met.
Yeah.
That was the
I
second
like
event I attended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's like, you know, their business has nothing to do with my business. But they just spoke to me about what they do, and I really, really feel like there's potential. Like I really feel that it's just about more people knowing about it.
I want you to introduce that concept of Dubai On Demand, what you do, and
Sure, yeah.
so you can just,
Yeah. So
there might be somebody who's interested.
Sure. But like with them, so with Dubai On Demand, like I hate the word influencer. It's not about that. It's about, you know, embracing your niche. You know, it's like, what is it that you stand for? What is it that you, and it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's surfing or whether it's speaking or, you know, whether it's listening, you know, it's how do you create that content in a way that is engaging, informative, and will give back, you know, will add value. Because the most searched words online right now are how to or how do I, you know, which means that people are trying to learn, you know, people are searching for information. So this whole phase right now of like the selfies and the fashion and the whatever, fine, there's a place for that, but it's a phase, you know, and gradually as people get more comfortable and more confident and get in front of the camera, you know, within the next couple of years, everyone is a content creator. So how do you create good content and spread the word? So for me, what I'm realizing is that I actually don't care about the people with millions of followers and hundreds of thousands of followers. I don't care about them because they're doing something right on their own anyway, and we don't know why they've reached those numbers. What I do care about are the people like the ladies here who are doing something so meaningful, you know, that no one knows about, you know. So like, what can we do to get that out? you know. So we've had a couple of chats. I think you came into the office this week and met someone, yeah. So like, what can we do to spread light on that? So maybe it's a case of getting you involved in our events coming up. Maybe it's a case of creating video content around that. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out, but there's potential. So I think, so right now we've got a whole range of people. We've got, yesterday we had a lady, Caroline Labouchere. I don't
She
know if
was here.
anyone-
She was here.
She was featured, yeah.
Yeah, so she came in
Rosemary.
yesterday, and she's
52-year-old,
she's
53-year-old.
54
The grey-haired
years old,
model.
and she's grown a massive following in the last year, strangely, just for having great hair. You know, I mean, really, like if you great, yeah. I mean, if you really look at it, she's a beautiful lady and she's done a great job and she's been modeling for the last year, but predominantly because she's got grey hair and she looks great. But then it's like, okay, great, understand, but what can we do with that? You know, is it more about empowering people in your age demographic that she quit her school? She was a teacher up until a year ago. You know, she was a teacher her whole entire life, you know, and then she quit to start a completely new career, and she's running and she's sponsored by Lululemon and she's like,
Whoa.
yeah, but
She was here.
so as far as I'm concerned,
When?
you know, I want to create regular content with her that is targeting 50 plus age group on how do you reinvent your life and restart and you know, be healthy and be fit. And that's interesting to me, not the fact that she has gray hair, which is what everyone is like taking photos of her, you know, now, you know. So it's like, what is the actual substance?
Does she stay in Dubai, does she? Does her
She is in
work?
Dubai.
Oh, she does?
Yeah.
Then we really need to know how she maintains
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, but that's the point. It's like, it's what are you giving people? I don't want to just see photos of you every day. You know, it's like you're lucky that that's lasting for now. You know, but at some point in time, you know, that's going to disappear, and it's you don't want to be known for that. It is like, what is the deeper meaning, the deeper purpose, the value? What are people learning? And there's so many people who have that potential, but they just don't know how to package it, or they don't know how to turn that into regular content. They don't know how to get the word out. I've got an author who I love. I think she's amazing. And she sits and she goes, but I'm not an influencer. I'm like, I'm not telling you you're an influencer.
She was
I'm
here as
saying,
well.
Karen, yeah. So I'm like, but you have a story, you have, you know, you have knowledge, you've got something to share. We're going to turn this into something, you know. So we're working together right now. We're creating an online book club, you know, because there aren't people in the book space, you know. And I'm looking for people who are different.
So if somebody comes and walks up to you and says that they're interested, what would be your criteria to decide whether to work with them or not?
So we're actually quite strict. We do an interview process first.
Okay.
And the point of doing an interview process is for us to get to know them and also for them to get to know us. But there are certain things I know that if people say it, you know, that they're probably not the right people. You know, if they turn around and say, how many brands are you going to get me? I was like, well, it's not about getting brands. You know, it's about growing your content, because it's growing your you know, your message. So automatically, if someone says, how many brands are you going to get me, they're already on my cross list, you know. And then if someone says, will I grow by X many followers, you're on my cross list as well. Because it's not about, you know, I don't care what your follower base. You could have the most engaged 100 followers, you know, who are there at every event, buy everything you promote, you know. You'd much rather have that.
It's called the age of micro-influencers, right? Is that?
Yeah, it's actually nano. They're even
Nano?
smaller. Yeah,
Okay.
but also because I've experienced it myself. Like my Bamboutique brand has over 100,000 followers on Facebook, and they're the least engaged people ever. Like, they don't buy anything, they don't comment on anything, they don't do anything. And my Dubai On Demand.
That's where you got the bamboo story.
Sorry? Yes, you see, I'm very, yeah. But my Dubai On Demand page, or at least at that time, it had 12,000, and like 50% of them comment and engage and like, and, you know, and I'd sit there with a brand and I'd say, you know, and they'd be like, oh, but you're, you know, you don't have enough followers. I'm like, for the love of God, would you rather have the 100,000 where nobody is engaging, or would you rather have the 12,000
Sure.
where half of them are actually engaged?
How
you
long
know?
since you started that business?
Dubai On Demand?
No, the bamboo.
Bamboutique, I was a bit silly. I started Bamboutique and Ti22 at the same time. So I started two completely different businesses.
So how many years now?
They both started in 2011. And then,
Where
sorry?
can we buy the?
Bamboo clothes? It's a fabulous question. There's an Instagram page, and there's a lot of stock in our living room, which every now and then my brother goes, so what are you
It's-
doing about all of this
Is
stuff?
is it children's clothes?
No, it's mainly adult. A lot of stuff that works very well for yoga, for working out. It's
From
very
China?
Soft. It got made here. Like the fabric originates from there, yes, but it all got made here.
From where?
I actually had it made in China. Like the factory make the bamboo and then shipped here and then designed it and then made it
Have
here.
you created like advertising about it?
At the time when I started, it was 2011, I did quite well on the PR side because my background is TV and media, so I knew, I sent it to the presenters I knew, to the radio people I knew. They all wore it and posted, and and then we had good coverage, and then I did all the markets that everyone does, the ripes and everything else. And because at that time there weren't so many eco-friendly brands, so it got a lot of PR, but it wasn't getting a lot of sales because
Maybe you consider influencers to wear it.
yeah, but at that time, like no one really knew what bamboo fabric was. So, like bamboo, really? Clothes out of bamboo? And so the only people who really bought were the ones who felt it, who came, felt it, tried it, they would buy it. Online, we barely did anything. So as a business, it wasn't a sustainable business. And to be honest, my Ti22 business is what I was doing during the week. And then like Thursday night would come and it would be like, and Neda was with me at the time, and we'd be like, start packing boxes of like labeling clothes, and we'd go to a market on Friday morning. And so it was quite exhausting to try and manage both. And it just got to a point where the bamboo one wasn't making money.
Basically, it's available for sale. That's all.
Oh yes, yeah, we'll talk later.
No, I was
yeah.
thinking, a bamboo takes a long time to grow, and
does.
maybe a bamboo business also takes a long time to
It
grow.
does.
But do you know that
Yeah.
there is now bamboo shampoo?
Now it's everywhere.
It's
So
everywhere
this is,
because it's supposed to be the best organic
I know.
stuff. I
But
mean,
this
I'm
is-
telling you because I use bamboo shampoo.
But this is what I was saying earlier. I
Tell us
have,
your secret, beauty. Come on.
but it is a challenge sometimes when you come out with something too early, because like right now,
It's
everyone,
amazing. I love bamboo.
it's an amazing fabric.
You sell
So
it?
when you said bamboo, my ears picked up.
Yeah.
immediately. It's
So
like-
maybe it's time for a comeback.
One last question. What is the greatest life lesson that you want to share with us?
The greatest life lesson. Honestly, to never give up. Like I honestly feel like if you set your mind to something and to have faith, I say it a lot. Like I say have faith, have faith, have faith, and because I genuinely feel that you can look at every situation and as long as you have faith, you'll find a way to work through it. So I try my very best. It's not easy, but I try my very best even when things aren't going the way I want them to just have faith. It will work out. Have faith, stay positive, it will work out. A lot of things go wrong all the time, like in our industry as well, like even from a work perspective, things go wrong every day, over and over again. But you just, and maybe because so many things go wrong all the time,
Yeah.
that you just reach a point where like, it's gonna work out, it's fine, So I've reached a very, I don't know what the very cool phase of like, I get a lot of panickers around me. A lot of panickers who go, this has gone wrong, and da-da-da-da. Okay. And then, it's like, so what are we going to do? Da-da-da. Okay, there's a solution. Have we thought about the solution? It'll work out. Just have faith, So I feel like I've reached that Zen mode of like, it'll work out, have faith, and keep going. So, thank you.
We could go on and on, I know, but
Yeah.
the time is also
No problem.
pressing. Pick one card, and while you reflect on that, we'll
Mhm.
take reflections from the crowd. But thank you so much.
These are the magic cards.
Magic cards.
Sorry, the first one.
Yes.
No, it's just two.
Today I learned that dedication and hard work is the new Wasta.
New Vasta.
I like it.
And staying
New
in,
century.
in an industry that you're in, wow. Because it's very different.
What are you taking away?
So much. I mean,
Bamboo cloth or something.
Yes.
Something very little, but very reinforcing. Not to do with solo, but with the business that we ventured into. I always, so Bhumika would share all the people that I could email, and I browse them and choose who to email. That sometimes I think it's too good to be emailed to this person, you know, something like that. But now, without even giving a second thought, I'm just going to email.
Good.
And
Good.
just let it be. I don't have to be judgmental on the look of it or on the website or anything. You never know what's going to work.
Yeah.
And so I'm definitely going to, if possible, I'm going to do that tonight, but I'm too tired. So first thing in the morning, sending those emails that will exist in the market. So it will.
I want to share just a quick story because it's recent and it's current, and it's so I a few weeks ago, like literally 4 weeks ago, I think. So I had something happen about a year ago and got quite depressed and then put on a lot of weight, and I've been very like, I have to sort this, and then so I started going to a gym 4 weeks ago, and finished the workout, and I asked the instructor, where's the restroom? She said, oh, it's upstairs. So I went upstairs and I just went to the toilet, and I could see this massive space, right? I was like, oh, this looks like an interesting space. And I knew the previous tenants of the space, but it looked empty, it looked vacant. So, and I don't know what made me do it, but I just went to open the door, you know? I mean, you would never open somebody else's office, you know? But I just felt like it's vacant, no one's here. And I opened the door and I walked in. I had a whole wander around this office. And I went back down and I asked the instructor, I said, what's the office upstairs? It's vacant. And she said, she was like, yeah, it's, the previous tenant, they just left. They're not there anymore. I said, wow. I said, it's amazing space. You know, it's really amazing. She's like, yeah. And that stuck with me that night. I couldn't sleep. The entire night, I couldn't sleep. And in my head, I had decided it was my new office, right? I decided I'd redecorated it in my head. Like I'd decorate like where everything was gonna go. I went to a shoot the next day, and you know, 2 people on the shoot were like, you look really tired. I'm like, I couldn't sleep. I spent the whole night redecorating my new office. Like, your new office, I have no idea how I'm gonna get this office, but it's my new office and I'm moving in. And then what's even bigger is like, I started to tell people we're gonna be in it before January 11th, because January 11th is like my company's birthday. So I was like, we're celebrating January 11th, that's where we're celebrating. We're gonna be in this space.
Oh my God.
I have no idea, and it's a massive space. So it got stuck in my head that I then messaged the instructor. I said, do you happen to know who the landlord is? She's like, yeah, can you send me his number? She sent me the number. I messaged him. I said, I love your space. You know, I have no idea. It's probably way above my budget, but I really love it. So I just wanted, just so I know, I just want to know what the number is, like what the rent is. And he said, well, actually, I would be open to a barter. Would you want to meet? Yes, let's meet, yes. We met him the next day. And so it's literally been about 3 weeks since I met him. And we spent about 2 weeks finalizing the barter agreement. And this morning, we signed the contract and got the keys.
Wow.
You know, and it's in Al Quoz, and it's quite a big, it's quite a big space.
So what is the
But-
barter?
Oh, we're going to be doing all of their video content, which is fine. Like I'm happy, you know, it's fine. It's and it was a huge, like very big coincidence. They won a TV show, and that's something I can do really easily. So I was like, no problem, we could do the TV show.
And the rent is free?
The rent's completely free, and it's a massive, massive space. And no one believes this. When I say this to people, they're all like, you know, really? I'm like, but it's something that was so out there. You know what? It's like I've always believed in signs and manifest, and people always keep saying manifest it. But this was the time where I really felt it. You know, I felt this is my office. I'm going to be in it on this date. We're going to celebrate. I don't know how, but it's mine. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, but
Where's your current office?
in TCOM.
You
But
do this always.
Yeah, but
Self-invite yourself everywhere.
the key to this, the key to it though is also the fact that I followed up, you know, because I
Chandler.
could have just looked at it and
Yes.
thought,
And then
okay, nice place, you know, but because it was going to be mine, it was like, I want the landlord's number, I'm going to call the landlord, I'm going to meet him, I'm going to see how it's going to work, and the last 2 weeks I think I've had like 10 meetings with this guy, you know, just trying to finalize everything. So I believe that if you want it, don't ever think it's too big, you know, there's
Wow.
always a way, and
And
it's
there's
and the key question is how, you know, it's like, you want it, how, and there's going to be someone who can help you. Yeah.
And if it's how, Google it.
How?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Email them. So
Email them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Insights.
Invite yourself.
Any other insights? Yes.
We started conversation, Samir, with this story about the lion chasing for food and then some animal running for life. So I believe actually we're going through your life, running for life. So every of those facts, like even this story, the last one with the Alcus space or the BBC, everywhere you were just finding this small space, even then the normal person would think like, okay, there is no possibility because maybe everyone rejected, but you just knock to the doors and try everywhere where it was possible, find the creative ways to do it, and you did it. So the persistence and the confidence that you really know that you're going to win Oscar, get the office, I think everything is going to happen. It's just finding the creative way how to do it. So this is, I think, the biggest insight for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think you are the first Oscar winner in our Awesome Walkers. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that should be.
So many because you never gave up on your hope. You did whatever it took to succeed. Whether you said you have to do emails or whether you have to, you know, do transport coordination, and for you that nothing was too big, and you believed in that
Or too
dream, and
small.
you believed.
Or too small.
Or
as
too
well.
small, actually.
Yeah.
Or because
too small.
But there's,
and you never gave up. I mean, you could have. You could have just like.
I still want to half the time. So it's still something. It's still
No,
a
I know,
feeling,
but
you know.
did it,
So.
and you didn't use Vasta and everything.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it was.
But something that I just mentioned, which I didn't follow up on, I would like to just elaborate, which I touched on BNI, because both Dheeraj and Raki are here and they're BNI members. I don't know if everyone knows what that is.
It's a BNI.
Oh yeah, Samir, you are as well. Yeah, I didn't realize, we're in a different group. I don't know if you've ever talked about this before, like as what it is, but for me, what I said earlier is that I knew that I was a very good producer, but not that I was necessarily that I was a good business person. And I was, and I love learning. So I figured like, how am I gonna become a better business person, you know? So I started going all kinds of courses, you know, sales courses, negotiation courses, like all these courses just to teach myself. And the sales, I went to a sales course, and the teacher, I said to him, I don't know what to do because I hate sales. I hate all of this, you know. He said, I think I have a better way for you. And he introduced me to BNI, which is a networking organization based on referrals ultimately. But what that taught me more than anything is that to surround yourself with people who are on a similar journey or on at least who can be a support network. Because, you know, although many friends faded away, because I joined an organization where I was surrounded with a lot of business owners, they were on a similar path. Their challenge.
You know, because it's easy, as you said, to just let it go and, you know, dismiss it. Okay, fine. But how many such times could you
Yeah.
do that before you start compromising, you know, on your own?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
There is one thing which I heard quite a lot of time, and many people would have heard here, is of Richard Branson. Is when you're presented, you know, and you came exactly as a reply to that. When you're presented with something which you are not sure of doing it, the best thing is to say yes, and then sort it out. You know, so all your examples just reflected that particular quote of Sir Richard Branson.
Thank you.
Okay.
To be in the same sentence as Richard Branson, that's cool.
And the
Thank you.
manifestation, the belief of manifestation is
Yeah.
Is a prime example of what happened. in
Yeah.
your case.
No, I
You already
believe that.
told people about your office before
Yeah,
it even
yeah.
existed.
Yeah. The office and the date,
And
the
the
celebration
decoration
date.
and
Yeah. It's happening.
So that is,
Yeah.
you know, you had to
Yeah.
make it happen. You
Yeah.
were like, you know, you can't let me down.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Wow.
Sure.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. First, you're my favorite, and I love
Oh,
She
thank
says
you.
that to everyone.
Oh, really? Damn.
Diplomatic, very diplomatic.
What is your problem? It's from my heart.
Oh, thank you. So,
No,
it's okay. I believe you. It's fine. It's
They are
fine.
jealous because you have too much love in your heart.
They don't understand. They have can
You
use heart. This is
continue,
the
yeah.
When you have to
I
use
thought I
heart,
was
you
your
will
favorite.
understand. Abundance is everywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought I was your favorite. Now I'm disappointed.
Everybody's my favorite. Then one way. I cannot say anything.
You said that to Almasa also.
I haven't master. What's your problem? You're creating problems here.
Go on. Go on. Yes.
Okay, I forgot. I'll think about it.
Yes, Bhumika. Yeah.
I'm taking your cheerful anything with me today because I'm sure it'll open all difficult doors in my life. That cheerful anything I can do, yes, that your face, smiley, cute.
Oh.
I'm taking that.
Thank you. Thank
Okay, now
you.
I remember. Other than I love you, I really love your show Out and About. That was very much an inspiration for me at that time because I don't remember what year it was, but I remember like sometimes you were not able to go and explore all those areas. Even though I'm doing it now, but physically at that time I couldn't. So through your program I could see that. That's why I'm saying like it was like for me it was very amazing that
Oh,
program.
thank you.
Really, really love it. And I like what you are doing now, like in terms of buy in demand and stuff. So I was suggesting about your bamboo. It was like this is in my head. So I was saying, why don't you create a bamboo on demand kind of thing to follow up in the brand? That's my suggestion. So it's up to you. And yeah, basically I love what you said. I could tell a lot from your story. I could reflect a lot, especially like on your determination and your mother characters. I could see a lot of similarity in the determination and stuff. So I would love to thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Did you mean bamboo on demand or bamboo please demand?
No, bamboo on demand.
Please demand and buy it.
She put it this way and then she put it.
It's a nice
that line,
concept. You
it
might.
happen,
Yeah.
because you have that power already.
Yeah.
And you have the stock.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
No, I have felt it. I know those products. Those are really amazing. Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah. Yes. Last one.
For 5 years?
Yeah.
We met in special circumstances because we are both eager of learning and we embark in a dodgy journey of learning. But what I really did appreciate is that Reem was very discreet, super efficient, and she has such a strong sense of humor. It's really, really fun to be around with her, you know.
Thank you.
Really, I love her ethic, I love her determination. She's an iron lady with a very, very sweet heart. And
Thank you,
that
Almas.
way.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else?
I don't know if I can have a question actually. Not if I
No, there's no time. But reflection. Yeah.
But you can make it as a reflection and ask the question.
Yeah. I could teach
Okay,
you that technique.
so from all of those experiences that you were having of finding a job before in UK and then in Dubai, you are having quite a lot of experience. I'm right now, let's say, the very first steps of looking for let's say, some position at the video production industry, and I'm thinking, what would be the best advice from you, how to actually start the journey besides sending email maybe to you?
It's a very small industry, and it's about who you know in the industry, and it's also about the work that you do. So I would personally go in as work experience, an intern in however many production companies you can, and you do a good job with one producer, they'll remember you and they'll bring you back. So it's the same as what I said earlier, which is how are you valuable to them? How do you make yourself valuable on a shoot, in an office? And it's that experience, hands-on experience, more than your CV. I've hired people who don't even have a degree.
And that is true for every industry, right? Not just for movies. How do you make yourself valuable to other organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. But I
No?
think in our industry, because so much of it is practical, like so much of it could involve you running around, driving around. It's stuff that especially when the entry level to the industry is actually quite boring. It's like quite a mundane thing to do for like the first year in the industry. Is not glamorous, you know. But you do, and not everyone's willing to do it. So like I've had unfortunately, I'm sorry, I've had locals who have come who they've just graduated, you know, and then they think that they're a producer and a director and a whatever, and then I've had one of them complain about me to their university because I asked her to pick up a CD, you know, and she's like, I'm not your driver, you know, to like go pick up, you know, a CD. I'm like, I need the footage. I asked you to pick it up. I would have asked anyone else to pick it up. You know, it's like this is a normal part of our what we do, you know. So I think, you know, if you're willing to just get involved wherever you can get involved, doesn't matter what it is, and just appreciate the fact that you're in that environment, you know, and learn, you will get the opportunity. But you have to just get in. And
So
unfortunately, interns and going in for free or is
So the first step
usually-
is actually becoming a team player, right?
Totally.
Once you become a team player, then you can lead teams.
Totally, and it is part of like just do whatever you need to do,
Yeah.
you know. So I mean, like Amala's been with us 6 months, I think, and she's done like a lot of things. So you know,
She's
from
thinking now the sweeping makes sense.
yeah, she is. You know, she's done everything from like, you know, she drives around at times. She's gone to print stuff. She's made coffees.
Lovely.
She's, you know. But then there are days where she's filming, and there are days that she's editing, and there's days that, you know, she goes to a production meeting and she's on set, and so it's a balance. It's like not every day is a glamorous day. There are a lot of days that are just office days, and you know. And I think if you're willing to be part of the whole journey, then you know you'll make it.
Wow.
So yeah. Thank you. I like my card. Life is a journey to self-mastery. I feel it's very me, so I approve. Thank you. I'm going to take a photo of it.
Please do.
Yeah.
Life is a journey to
Self-mastery.
So you were guest number 120 and the last guest for the year 2018.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I like it. Thank you very much, Samir. I really appreciate it. Thank you to you. Thank you to everyone here for staying so late. I really appreciate it.
No, I've been chasing you for how many months, you know, to get her on the show? I wanted to meet you, remember?
Yeah.
Very busy, but thank you so much for being here
No, thank you.
and
for
signing
having
off 2018 for me.
me. Thank you so much. Thank you.